get familiar. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Bootstrap allows for many different button styles. The first row in this example provides an illustration of what the different button classes look like. In our HTML code on the left side, we can see how each button was created. We start with the open button tag, and this is in reference to the first button here, the default button. After the button tag, we specify the type attribute, which in this case is button. And next, this is the important part for the styling, we specify the two classes, button, btn, and button default. Button default gives this type of button styling. Next, we've just specified the label for the button, which in this case is default. And lastly, we close the button element tag. For the remaining buttons in this block of code, all we've done is updated the button class and button label. So you can see here for the second button, we've changed one of the classes to button primary and updated the label as well to primary. If you wanted something different displayed on the button, you could simply go ahead and change the label. I'll save the file, and once I refresh, we can see different text displayed in the button. The third button uses the button success class, followed by button info, warning, danger, and button link. Button link creates this type of an effect. It's a text link which is underlined on mouse over. Bootstrap also allows us to apply button classes to elements such as input elements and submit buttons. We can see an example here. The first item is a link element. You can see that with the open A tag and closing A tag. In this case, the link element has been assigned the class button and button info. We also need to specify the button, the role, which in this case equals button. And when we do that, this is the type of button that's created. And so you can see that we've converted a link element into a button format. Next, we have the input button. So you can see the open input tag, we specified the type, button type, and we've also specified the class, which in this case, two classes, button and button primary. And so you can see we've applied, this is the type of style that's created to an input when you apply these two classes. Next, we have a submit button, a submit input. And we've applied two classes again, button and button warning. And this is the type of input style we get from those two classes. Now keep in mind that the value is just the text that's outputted on the button itself. So if we wanted to change that, we could. After saving, I'll just refresh. And you can see that the label changes. We can change the size of the buttons by adding the button size class. Here we have our first button set to button large, so btn-lg, and that produces the largest button size, followed by button medium, small, and extra small. And you can see the output on the right hand side here. We can create block level buttons using Bootstrap. A block level button spans the entire width of the parent element. So in this case, the parent element is a fixed width container. So there you can see the parent. class equals container. Okay, and to create a block level button, you just need to apply the button-block class. So here we have button, button primary, and the third class button block. And so that's what that looks like there. You'll notice that the other block level buttons are larger, or sorry, the second one is larger and the other one is smaller. And that's because we've specified the size. So on the second block level button, we've just created another class, which is button large. Okay, the button primary is as we explored previously, is the bluish button. Button default is the clear button. And so you can see all the different classes we've applied here. Button, button primary, button large, and button block. And that's produced this large block level button here. These two block level buttons were created in the same way. All we've done is changed from button large to button small, as you can see here. We can create disabled or active buttons. So you can see here that this button is unclickable, meaning it's disabled. And on the left, this button is active. Okay, so on the left-hand side in the code, we can see that we've applied the button class, button primary, and also active. So the active class gives it a little bit more of a highlight. It's slightly darker blue than the primary class, which is over here. Now disabled, you can see in the second button, we've created the different classes button, button primary, and disabled. So by adding the disabled class, this is the effect you get. We can group a series of buttons together using button groups. In this example, we've grouped 3 buttons together: Home, Company, and Contact. In order to create a button group, we need to create a div element and give it a button group class. Inside our container, we can see here that we have a div element with 2 classes, button group and button group large. The button group large specifies the size of the button. The individual button elements are then nested into the div. We can see that this group has 3 buttons, each with the button and button primary classes defined. We can size the button group by adding a button group large or button group extra small class to the div. This particular group has the button group large class. This group over here is identical, except that it has the button group extra small class. So you can see that the first group, the button style is larger, and in the second, it's smaller. Button groups can be laid out horizontally or vertically. In this example, we currently have them horizontally. We can change from horizontal to vertical by adding the word vertical to our button group class. And after saving and refreshing the page, we can see that the button group is now vertically styled. To have a button group span the entire width of the screen, we can use the button group justified class. In this example, we can see the buttons respond to changes in the browser size. The buttons expand and contract as the browser shrinks and expands. In order to do this, we need to create a div and attach two classes. This is our block of code for the button group. And we've started with a div element. We've attached two classes to this div element, button group and button group justified. Inside the div, it's easiest to create each button using a link element. Here you can see we have three links, starting with our opening A tag. And each link has the button and button primary class attached. And of course, the button label. So we've done this for the remaining buttons as well, home, company, and contact. And you can see them all here. So this is the easiest way to do it. We can use button elements as well for the links, but the process is a bit longer. So this second block of code pertains to this button group here, the second one. And this time we've used button elements instead of link elements. So in order to do this, first we need to create a div and give it the button group and button group justified class, just as we did before. But this time we also have to nest each button element inside its own div. So you can see we have three div elements, and each element has the class button group. Inside each div element, we have the button element, and we've attached two classes, button and button primary, to the button element. And so we've done this, we've repeated this for each button. So you can see that the process is a bit longer if you want to use the button element.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me,